Look, Alperen Sengun's a really good player, but I'm going to tell you why you need to keep his name out of sentences that have the name Nikola Jokic in it. Plus, Ryan and I will talk about when we knew that Jokic was an all-time great and should never even try and have small ball at all this season, all that and more. Plus, hijinks galore on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day, being with us Monday through Friday, hanging out with us for all of our shows. We do appreciate you being with us. Like on today's show, we're going to talk about when we knew Nikola Jokic was an all-time great. Should Denver even try small ball? And I'm going to let you know why the name Baby Jokic for Alperen Sengun bugs me so much. And I'm going to put down some strong takes about the comparison before their matchup in Eurobasket coming up. My name is Matt Moore. I'm a senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Ryan Blackburn and Mile High Sports. You can check him out on the Pickaxe and Roll podcast. Thanks for joining us, whether you're listening to us on podcast or do appreciate the 5-star reviews, or if you're checking us out at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets, give a like and subscribe. If you want to join the live show, we're here on No Jinx, because we never jinx anybody, here on Sunday nights and Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Mountain Time. So if you want to check us out, we're there on the regular 10 p.m. Mountain, Sundays and Tuesdays, as well as throughout the season. We'll be bringing you our usual post-game shows this season, as well as the season does start here in
it's next month.
It's next month. We are back in the flow next month.
Let's go.
Okay, so lots to kind of get to today. One of the Jokic kind of centric show today. And I want to start here because there's Alperen Sengun came in the league, and because he's a big man who is white and can chew gum and walk at the same time, there are comparisons made between him and Jokic. Like the fact that he can pass a little bit is like, oh man, he's like Jokic. Oh, he's like Jokic.
There's some better reasons than that as to why he got those comparisons, but keep going. Go ahead.
No, I will listen. Why?
One of the big reasons was the actual stats, the advanced numbers that he was putting up prior to the draft were ridiculous. They were fantastic. Those numbers, a lot of those same numbers that were translating that Jokic had, where he was a second round pick that clearly had first round numbers, but didn't necessarily look the parts. Sengun was a lot of that same feeling, but because Jokic had already shown that you can do it, it's one of the reasons why Sengun's stock really rose in the draft.
Yes, I can agree with that, but I still think it's more a matter of he's a center who doesn't score back to the basket or run basic pick and roll.
Mm.
And that's what like 90% of the bigs in the league are, because that's where the league has evolved to with the pick and roll game. And my problem is I don't find them stylistically similar. Like I see where people are getting it, right? It's fine for a casual to be like, oh, hey, he's kind of like Jokic.
Yeah.
That's fine. To me, the difference is that from the very, very, very beginning, Jokic showed an aptitude in shaping the game that we always talk about and impacting the game significantly in ways that do not represent themselves in a box score. It's not a rebound.
Right.
It's not just a pass. It's the type of pass. It's the timing of the pass. It's the sequence of events. It's how the defense is unable to really account for or figure him out. No team in the NBA is like, man, can't figure out Alperen Sengun. He beats them. Sengun's a great player. He's an all-star.
Yeah.
But there's always been a comparison that I've liked a lot better for him. And people think it's an insult, and it's really not. It's just a better one, and it's this. So if you're watching at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets, you're going to see a chart that's got 3 lines on it. And this is estimated plus minus, which is, in my opinion, the best catch-all. And you should use all of them all the time. Not one single metric is going to inform things. But EPM is a really great indicator of, hey, how much do you actually impact winning? Like, not not how many points do you score, and not player efficiency rating, which is like how efficient are you in those efforts. It's like how much impact do you actually is, and this is by age. And you're going to notice that Alperen Sengun is in the middle between two players. Nikola Jokic at the top, who is significantly above him.
Sure.
And then below him is Domantas Sabonis. And I was really interested in this chart because I was like, wow, Sengun has been more impactful in every season in Houston than Domantas Sabonis has ever been.
That's
across
wild.
Orlando, OKC, Indiana, and Sacramento.
A credit to him, by the way. Like he had, like, that is of course the comparison. It's the Charizard meme, the Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard that pops up on the Twitters, where people like to compare different players, and you like to talk about baby Jokic. Obviously, I do think that he's at least, if not a better player than Sabonis, well on track to be a better player than Sabonis consistently. And there are some metrics, of course, that suggests that he's already there. I do get where you're saying. We're going to get into this a little bit in terms of when you realized Jokic was an all-time great, but you think about what Sengun is doing right now, what Sabonis is doing right now. Jokic, when he stepped into the starting lineup in his second season, turned the Nuggets offense into quite literally the best offense in the NBA. It was December 15th, 2016. From then on, the rest of that season, best offense in the NBA. That is the same year that Kevin Durant went to the Golden State Warriors. The same year that Kawhi Leonard was challenging for an MVP. It's the same year that Houston and James Harden were running incredible offense with incredible spacing. Like, Jokic was the one who turned Denver great and had that level of impact that you're talking about. So 100%, like, don't compare Alperen Sengun to Jokic, because the levels of impact between a historically great player, a transformative player, and a really good player in Alperen Sengun, obviously different.
And like, Sengun can beat Jokic in this Eurobasket game. Like, that can absolutely happen. Sengun can have a phenomenal performance. Turkey's been killing it.
Yeah.
And there's a chance that Sengun makes a real leap this season, because I will say one of the reasons I don't like the comparison is this. You know, Jokic was drafted and Jokic came off the bench, and Jokic started off slow, and they were trying to figure out the Nurkic thing. And Jokic said, hey, I'll come off the bench. And they were starting Nurkic, and it was like unavoidable. Sure. Unavoidable. That it was like, oh man, Jokic has to play. Oh man, Jokic has to play a lot. Oh man, Jokic has to have the ball. Oh man, Jokic is our best player. Like, an interesting number that I looked across the first 4 seasons of each of their careers, those three players. Sengun has a higher usage rate, despite a lower PER, a lower assist rate, a marginally lower score. Like, he is generally speaking as much of a volume scorer as Jokic is. I just don't necessarily jump at that, because I'm like, that's never been Jokic's game. Like,
he's also just not as efficient and not as effective in those opportunities, which is why Jokic, it's just night and day.
So Tony mentions the biggest difference between Sengun and Jokic is strength, and the strength with which they play as well. Sengun's physicality lacks a time where Jokic steps up. I don't agree.
I don't agree either.
Because I think, one, here's part of it. Sengun can actually make some pretty wild layups even as he's falling backwards. Like, he's got really great touch. So he's able to make some layups even against bigger guys. He's not going to body them the way that Jokic does. But like, that's not really the gap. The gap is like that floater, man. Like, that's the massive, is that Jokic's like mid game is insane, and Sengun's is like pretty good. Yeah. Like, as a comparison, across those first 4 seasons, Sengun shot 54.7% from 2-point range. Jokic shot 57% from 2-point range right off the bat.
Yeah.
And like, he was better from 3, and that's fine. And there is a counter that I think Houston fans would probably have, which is like, hey, what about the age thing, right? Like, he's younger. He started off younger than Jokic, so that's the thing. But again, I'll refer you to the chart, which is actually sorted by age. And the problem is, like, when you get to the same age point, and even if you compare them by seasons played point, you still see that gap significantly between them. And this is not, I get the idea of no one saying that Sengun is as good as Jokic. They're saying that they're similar. I would argue in the same way, though, is that in order to be Jokic-like, you have to impact the game. Do you know who's more Jokic-like than Alperen Sengun? Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
Tyrese Halliburton is very Jokic-like. Sengun is not.
it's a fundamental difference between how you can, like, the actual value of running an offense through you, of you making the decisions, being the smart player, and lifting everybody up around you. Sengun can fit in to a system like that. He can be an approximate for a system like that. I actually think that of all the centers in the NBA, he delivers the second best highlight passes. I think that there is something to that. But you look like you don't agree on that. I just think that he's one of those guys that when you get the no looks and you get the, like, he threw a pass between somebody's legs in Eurobasket earlier this week, like last week. It's pretty impressive. Some of the stuff that he's doing is pretty impressive to me, but it's just completely different. And I'm curious to see how they play tomorrow.
Your average YouTube friend says, "Are you seriously having a show about this topic?" Sir, it is September 2nd.
It has been the quietest off season,
and I don't
in recent memory.
And I don't want to talk about it like before a Rockets game. I'd rather talk about the Rockets matchup when we get in season. So this is the good time to talk about it.
For sure. And there's like, we get to talk about Jokic's greatness in the second segment.
Yeah, great tease, Ryan. So coming up, we are going to talk about, I'm going to ask Ryan this question. When did you know that Jokic was an all-time great? Because I struggle a lot with this question. We'll talk about that coming up here on Locked On Nuggets. The NFL season's almost here. As you listen to this, one day away, it starts. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You can load up on futures for your Denver Broncos or bet on the favorites like the Eagles or the Bills. It's great to use bonus bets on those kind of future plays, and then you can play against them later when you get better odds if you like the dog. FanDuel's got so many options. Their futures market is really robust. It's a lot of fun to bet into. Their live market is always really great as well. I have already placed my first bet of the NFL season, Broncos, -7.5 versus the Titans. I think there was too much hype around the Titans, and I looked at this. I always do a line flip of if you flip the home field 4.5 points, which is a little bit high given where they've been in recent years, but I still hold on to it. That means that the Broncos would only be -3 in Tennessee. And this is a rookie quarterback starting on the road in altitude. No, sir. So I like the Broncos to win big on Sunday. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us here on Wednesday. If you're listening, Tuesday night, if you're joining us at youtube.com/Locked On Nuggets. All right.
Speaking of show topics, we're not going to hit on this one because the unfortunate, like, Curious Mike summer has just not been an enjoyable experience for Ryan. Just not one of those where I really care to comment on it that much.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say something about it just while we're here. Okay. So I've praised Mike a lot. I wrote like an entire thing like praising his time as a Nugget, and I think it's important to be like, I really have a lot of appreciation and respect for Michael Porter Jr., the basketball player, right? And like none of the stuff that he said is surprising. There were always signs that this was how he felt about various things. And there were also signs that weren't public that like you would see because you just being around the team, even in the limited, we don't really know them at all capacity that we do. Like this, none of this is surprising.
Yeah.
And if you're wondering if it's disappointing, like yes, but the reason I'm not going to like go off on is one, he's no longer a member of the Nuggets, and two, I will say this, like I was never going to root that out because like what point does that serve?
No.
Like what good does this do? When he made comments, I would criticize them. I criticized him during the bubble about his skepticism of the vaccine. And I'll continue to criticize and question the Nuggets whenever one of them makes a comment that I think is worth public comment on. But I think it's one of those where it's like, Mike really was like an impressive professional. He was way more professional than I thought he was going to be. And the reason I didn't think he was going to be is all of this. Like, this is why I was always skeptical about Michael Porter Jr.
Shout out to Nick O'Hare, Cody Wise, Michaela, Emmanuel, the Nuggets trio of PR team.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Jokic. What was the moment where I feel like there was one day when you have said, is he an all-timer? And I would have said he could be, like, he's definitely on track to, etc. And then there was another day where it was like, no doubt, no question, absolutely, Jokic is an all-timer. And I have a really hard time. There are these points along the way I can mention about his greatness.
Yeah.
But I don't know when I actually got to the point where I was like, yeah, I mean, Jokic is an all-time great.
So going through that line of thinking, I have two moments that immediately stand out. The first is the game 82 that he played against Minnesota, putting up 35 points on the road back in 2018. On that stretch of games, he really had to turn into a monster. Denver needed those games. They needed those wins just to get into that situation. And then in the biggest game of the season, he thrived in a really tough, impressive situation. He showed that he could lead the basketball team. That was a big deal to me. But when I knew he was an all-time great, it was the FU shots against the Lakers. Those were it's a long time between those two things, because it did feel like, despite the fact that he had won 2 MVPs up until that point, he had a 3rd straight MVP season. To be considered an all-time great, it needs to be undeniable. And in that series, he was undeniable to me, to the point that Anthony Davis is shaking his head. LeBron James is threatening retirement. You have so many other factors as they just absolutely demolish and pants the Los Angeles Lakers on their home floor. And I was in the building for game 4 when he threw that shot behind his head. And it was one of the most cathartic moments of my career. I can't lie.
Yeah, so I think one of the moments that I look back on, maybe not as I knew, but as I should have, was game 4 of the Blazers series in 2019.
Yeah.
They go to like quad overtime in game 3, and they're gassed, they're exhausted, they've got nothing left. There's nothing. Like, I was like, well, that's it. Because that game, now they're on the road.
They already went to 7 games in the previous series.
Yeah, like there's no way. And then Yoke came out and just absolutely trucked them in that next game and still played to the bone. And it was, I was stunned by it. I think what's weird is, like, their first real playoff success was 2020 in the bubble, but Jamal was such a big story in the Utah series, and then the Clippers series.
I do think Yoke kind of took over as the story in that particular series.
He was great, but what I always remember from the Clippers series is Paul Millsap.
Of course. Yeah.
Why did you talk trash to Paul Millsap?
Marcus Morris.
Marcus Morris. Why would you do
smart decisions since the beginning of time, as we all know, especially recently. Yeah, no, I think it's 100%. Like, that's a great one. I think game 6 of that bubble series, where he makes the turn, like there's a turnaround Sombor shuffle that he makes at the end of the 4th quarter against Paul George. He just catches the ball on the right elbow and immediately rolls into a Sombor shuffle going towards the baseline that hit nothing but the bottom. And I was like, dude, nobody takes that shot. Like, that is a ridiculous shot that nobody in the world takes. And he took it and he made it. I think in that moment, that should have been it was the jumping off point for the MVPs for 5 straight MVP caliber seasons. Who would have thought?
Yeah. And it's like, I think it's interesting that there isn't this like clearly defined one. The closest they can get to it, I think, is, however, like you said, it's the Sombor shuffles over Davis. Like, those shots were just leaving Anthony Davis and the Los Angeles Lakers, because like Adam and I were like, we were terrified going into that series. We're like, teams like the Nuggets never beat the Lakers. Like when Dave McMenamin was like, you think LeBron's losing to to Denver? Yeah. It wasn't crazy. That's not what happens.
That's just what history said up until that point. And I do agree, like heading into that series, it was, you've got the best offensive player in the world versus the best defensive player in the world. You've got the Jokic stopper, the guy who can go toe-to-toe with him and make him work. And then for him to do what he did in game 1 of that series, and for them to have to sub Rui Hachimura onto Jokic in that game, obviously that changed the storyline. But the real story of that particular series was Jokic flambeing Davis so bad that he had to hide on somebody else in order to be a viable defensive threat. It was unbelievable. And that is how the story should be told. It was Jokic taking somebody who people were discussing as the best defensive player in the world and making him an insignificant nobody.
It is interesting that his two MVP seasons didn't do enough. Like the first one was met with such resistance, and the second one was met with such grumbling acceptance.
Yeah.
And that was really, I think, what was great about the 2023 season is it was like, we're not giving this guy 3. We're not doing it. Like I argued with Anthony Irwin, who was like, you can't do that when he's not going to win the title. I was like, what if he wins the title? And he was like, well, and I was like, but what if he wins the title? He's like,
it shouldn't have been that crazy going into that year.
And Anthony was like, well, then we'll have been wrong.
Yeah.
And you were. And then you gave it to him in a year he didn't deserve. Anyway, I'm not going to get down that road. But I think it's fascinating to me to realize that you're covering one of the, like, I'm always stunned just because, like, I moved out here specifically in part because I was like, hey, you know, Denver is always going to kind of be like one of those teams that's like in the middle. And I never moved out here with any thought that I would ever get to cover an all-time player. And
hey, why didn't you predict that the kid from Sombor would come in and change the league? Why didn't you predict that?
Well, that's why Adam Mares gets the big bucks, Ryan.
Yeah,
that's why Adam Mares.
Yes, he does. That's
all right.
Good man right there.
Coming up, I got a question for Ryan. We'll get back to the Nuggets this season, and I got a good question for him because Ryan's ongoing efforts to kill Aaron Gordon have maybe hit a little bit of a speed bump. I'm going to ask him whether or not the Nuggets actually need to play small ball at all this season. Coming up on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Wednesday. I have no idea what day it is. I'm very tired.
Just wait until October, buddy.
Yeah, well, I got some family stuff going on. All right, so I wanted to have this conversation because I was just thinking about, you know, we debated last year a lot about how much should you use AG at the 5.
Sure.
Those lineups were so good in 2023. They were so good in 2024. And last year they weren't. And they just weren't effective enough. This is such a better roster, though. And they have so many different configurations. Adelman, if I ask about this at Media Day, if I say, hey, what are your thoughts on small ball? He's going to be like, if it makes sense, we'll use it. It's that simple. Right? It's like if you have, but to me,
he'll say it in that way, by the way. He'll say it in exactly that manner. It's like, well, Matt, if he, or maybe he won't use names because I don't know if he knows our names yet. Nope. If it makes sense, we will use it is a very fair, reasonable.
Yeah. And so I'm always of the thought, though, you do kind of need to rule out some things and be like, that's not who we are. You don't want to leave anything that might be good off the table, but I'm not sure that that's where they want to go this season. Let's say Jonas has to miss time, though. Let's say Jokic is playing, but Jonas is out 2 weeks with an ankle.
Yeah.
What does that look like to you? How do you want it configured? What is the Nuggets version of small ball this year look like compared to, say, last season?
It's a great question because in part, like one of the weaknesses that Cam Johnson has in place of Michael Porter is that he's just a smaller player. He's not as good on the glass. He's not somebody that is going to soak up some of those rebounds and allow you to play smaller in some of those lineups. And then Peyton Watson would be playing the 4 a lot in those cases anyway. And so you're already pretty weak on the glass, and Denver would be playing small. And like the small ball, when I think of small ball, I think of either Aaron Gordon or some other forward at the 5, and then 3 guards or 2 guards and 2 wings or something like that. Maybe 2 guards, 2 forwards and a wing, something of that nature. And so Denver does have decent personnel to get to some of those lineups. It's not perfect though. And I think a lot of it is bookmarked on the idea that Aaron can kind of tie a lot of those lineups together, can be that physical presence in the middle. I'm not sure he's that guy anymore. And that sounds like maybe more offensive than it actually is, but he has transformed his game a lot over the course of these last 2 years. 2023, he was operating in the dunker. He was rolling down Main Street. He was getting up. He was leading the league in dunks from the forward position. Like, he was dominating. He is now more of a jump shot player. He's more perimeter oriented in a lot of ways. And Denver just doesn't have a lot of rim pressure if he's not going towards the rim. So it's one of those things. It's hard to run some of those lineups offensively and defensively if Aaron Gordon's not like dominating in the middle of the floor like he had been previously.
So this is where I think the way to do it instead, because a lot of it I think was, hey, they don't have anybody that can attack the rim except Aaron. Put a body on him, right? You counter that by having somebody else who can attack the rim. So this is why I think you run a small ball double big. Okay, so you run Aaron and Duran in that situation, and with Holmes and Gordon, you've got the ability for both to be able to attack. And Gordon's so good now, honestly, at the short roll lob and like so many other like Aaron's is such a great playmaker now.
Yeah.
And he'll give Jokic unending credit, but a lot of guys could play with Jokic and never pick it up. And Aaron has. So like you can run high pick and roll with Aaron and Bruce and have Aaron on the short roll and a Draymond Green roll lobbing to Duran Holmes's Kevon Looney. And that can work. And like those mechanisms are really good. And I like the defensive capability of that as well, where you've got Holmes's athleticism and size and just physicality, and you've got Aaron's floor generalship and athleticism. And that combo along with the wings that they've added, to me, seems like it's a lot better.
A lot of the ways to talk about small ball is the mechanisms to go from what is a starting lineup to then what is that small ball unit. So what I mean by that is, does Aaron Gordon then he has to come out of the game probably at the 6-minute mark of the first quarter, the 5-minute mark of the first quarter, somewhere around there. He rests for the rest of the first quarter. And then he comes back in the second quarter with that second unit, along with somebody like Duran Holmes. Jokic and Holmes can play together at the end of the first quarter. And you start that kind of natural transition period where Holmes then moves from a 4 to a 5, and he's playing big, to then you're playing small and you're playing with a couple of different guys, but Aaron's kind of that playmaker in some ways. I do agree with you. It should be a useful thing. There might, and I said this last night on Pickaxe, there might be, like, there's at least a non-zero chance that Jonas Valanciunas pulls a Dario Saric and just isn't as good for Denver in what we thought would be a really good role for him. Like, Dario Saric was brought in to be a backup center, to be very solid. He wasn't. There is a world where Jonas, towards the end of his career, just isn't as good, isn't able to keep up with some faster teams. You will need small ball. You will need lineups like this one in a playoff capacity. You just will. There's a possibility that Valanciunas just isn't viable for the playoffs by the end of the year. So I think it takes a lot, and it's worth exploring. It is worth trying to figure out if this is something that they can do.
Yeah. The reason that Jonas won't be a bust is because Cam didn't think it was a bad signing. So of course it'll work out great.
Hey, I mean, he had a good feeling about this one. He did not have a good feeling about Dario. That is for sure. I think he felt pretty good about that one going in. But no, I do think that Valanciunas will be good. I think against 90% of games, 70 to 72 games, like you are probably going to just go Jokic, Valanciunas, Jokic, Valanciunas, Jokic.
Okay, so this is a tough one. If you save AG at the 5 for the playoffs and you don't know how it works with this configuration, the last results we had were bad.
Yep.
On the other end, if you go into it with we're not going to do that, JV is our 5, JV just may not be playable in the playoff environment. So like you're still back at the same, is Jokic going to have to play 48 minutes thing?
In the playoffs, it's okay. But the hope that you're getting to is that through the regular season, like you think about this, DeAndre Jordan was 9th on the team in minutes at like 9. Like it was not a lot.
I think honestly though, Ryan, I don't think it's okay in the playoffs anymore.
I think he still needs to be closer to 40 in the playoffs. Sure. Like he can't be.
No, I'm not saying like Jokic can play 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But like he's, 45, 46. One, with the age that we've talked about and him being a little bit more mortal than he once was.
Yeah.
And then 2, just like look at what the Thunder and look at what the Pacers did. And I'm a guy that's always like, really, does 35 minutes versus 30 really matter? I do think in a playoff environment when you're playing every other day, I do think 45 versus 38 matters.
Oh yeah. So I'm 100% in agreement. If they can't figure this out, they are not going to win the title. Like straight up. Like if they do not figure out a solution behind Jokic, it will not happen.
I don't know if I believe that. I think they can. I think this could still be like they have a mortal weakness, and then they're just like plus 25.
But think about what happened in 2023, where one of the ways that Denver was able to get to that point where it's okay, Jokic plays 40, 45 later in the playoffs. But through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, the Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, Christian Brown bench with Murray and Gordon staggering, it played a lot. Like those guys played and they were good. And they found a lot of good mechanisms to just give Jokic some breaks.
Okay, but this is important though. You're asking about the behind Jokic. If your other guys just play, like what if they don't solve the behind Jokic, but they do solve, but the second unit's still better because Bruce, Tim Hardaway Jr., Julian made a leap, and Peyton's better.
I mean, so maybe you have to stagger. Maybe you have to stagger Jokic a little bit more. Maybe that's the thing. Like,
I'm very curious to see what Adam. I'm assuming everything stays the same, but I am going to be curious about what he says about that media day.
I'm going to ask him about it. Like that seems like a great question. Jokic has never once had this other kind of rotation. Would this be something you'd be interested in?
They run these transcripts through AI, and now they know. What are you doing? Don't help. Don't help. Okay? All right. That's going to do it for Locked On Nuggets. That's going to do it for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. Tomorrow, we'll see if we do a reaction. We'll have a reaction vid from Cam on Turkey, Serbia, and then Cam and I will talk about it on Thursday. So we'll have reaction to Turkey versus Serbia in Eurobasket play on Thursday, and then Ryan and Cam on Friday. Appreciate you guys being with us. Hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.